We will start with, if you could please describe how yourself and your role in your institution and how your organization handles or addresses partnerships with either colleges or area employers with respect to internship programming.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lana Farley, and I'm the Assistant Director of Employer Relations at the University of Baltimore. So I'm going to kind of start off with a little bit about the University of Baltimore. So we are part of the University System of Maryland umbrella, so there's 13 institutions, but we're unique in the sense of we are a non-residential campus seated in an urban community. So the average age of our undergraduate student is 28, and average age of our graduate student is like 32 to 35. We have about 5,000 students on campus, and my team, I oversee employer relations, so my team works with employers and faculty and students just to make sure that different internship opportunities are available. So it can be networking at like chamber events, going to different, conferences, business card exchanges, that sort of thing. We have a pretty strong pipeline, so a lot of employers will reach out to our office, just, we call it low-hanging fruit, right? So just offering different opportunities, and then we partner with faculty and students through employer presentations in the classroom to talk about different opportunities. One way that, rather than just coming in and just talking about openings, we try to get like an alumni to come in and talk about their experience at UB and how it translates to that actual content in class. So students can see the connections, and then different information sessions, and then we do site visits as well. So bringing students to employer sites to take a tour and learn about the different opportunities. So, yeah.
Todd McCulloch, American Family Insurance. I'm a career management advisor. After 20 years of being an IT manager, hiring interns and other folks, I decided to do the fun part of the job and get out of management. So what we do with our relationship with universities is lots of different things depending on the university. I'm on the advisory board of a couple different schools. So a lot of us will be involved that way. So we'll work with the instructors and stuff and work on their curriculum and see if we can continue to improve that. So that's one way we do things. We get involved in student groups as well. So they'll invite us to participate maybe in a panel, a discussion panel about what is needed for resumes or for jobs or other things. And so we'll get involved in that. We'll do mock interviews, help kids with getting prepared for those first job interviews, which it can be difficult sometimes. So we try to partner as well as going out to the different schools and recruiting, and we try lots of different things to try to get kids interested in American Family Insurance. IT folks, think of Google and other things as the cool places to go. So American Family Insurance isn't the first thing they think about as far as technology goes. And so trying to make that sale of trying to tell them that we really are becoming a technology company with some of our acquisitions and some of the things that we do. So we're trying to educate them on, there's a lot of jobs in a lot of different companies actually that have technology. So it's not just the ones that you would think of. It is other jobs as well. So I think it's just trying as many different ways to find things that would be interesting to the students. One of the things that I've seen with this generation of students is they're very interested in community service, and that's us. That's how we define ourselves almost, is how much we give back to the community. And so sometimes instead of giving swag out, we've asked for them to sign up. When we were out in Wilmington, the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, we said, hey, if you sign up for one of the things to clean up the areas of the campus will give you $5 towards their favorite lunch spot. And so things like that, instead of just the swag that has American Family's brand on it, we try to do fun things as well.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Yan. I'm the Executive Director of Momentum West. Momentum West is a regional economic development organization covering 10 counties in the west central part of the state of Wisconsin. We butt up right against the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. There are 9 organizations like ours across the state that collectively blanket the state without any overlaps. Kind of a unique structure for the state of Wisconsin, very effective structure. Our region covers about 500,000 residents, very unique in regard to the fact that we have 3 University of Wisconsin system schools and 2 tech colleges in our region. So at any given time, there are about 44,000 students in post-secondary education. So we kind of look at things a little bit differently in regard to an economic development organization. We always used to focus on business attraction. But with the workforce challenges that everybody is facing now across the country, we've diversified our approach to what our organization should be doing, and we split time between business attraction and talent attraction, development, and retention. So with the talent attraction, development, and retention area, we've been able to establish some real solid relationships with the higher education institutions. What we do is we form collaborative efforts. A couple of examples of those. On the high school level, we've got a software package that we rolled into the state's academic and career planning module that allows business and industry to interact with the high school students. They can message back and forth. They can develop mentors. They can identify career pathways and connect with the businesses and industry within our region that will fulfill those career pathways. On the college level, we've got a program called UWIN, which stands for the University of Wisconsin Internship Network. We've got a breakout session at 10:45 where we'll drill down into that a little bit more with a couple of my cohorts that are here from 2 of the UW system schools that helped us put that together. That's a program that makes it very simple for business and industry. Primarily, our target business and industry, small rural organizations that typically fly under the radar, that have now leveraged internship programs to very simply get on a web portal, answer a couple of quick questions, and apply for an internship program. That was so successful it actually grew into a second effort with another one of our economic development regions called TechStart, which is just for the tech schools in the northwestern corner of the state of Wisconsin. So that's kind of in a nutshell our organization and what we're up to, and I can give you some more details as we move forward.
Well, good morning again. Christian Corrales, the University of Texas at El Paso. Director of Community Relations, and put simply, I am the campus connector. And what that serves for the institution is we look and strategize on windows of opportunities that may enhance particular initiatives or programs that we're trying to either roll out to our community or, on the contrary, trying to get support from the community to support these particular initiatives. As it relates to experiential learning / internships, I am a liaison to the Career Center. So my office is not in the Career Center, but my office is located in the Vice President for Student Affairs Suite. And in my particular capacity, so as a liaison to the Career Center, I leverage the contacts, the networks that I've established from all my years in higher education to look at ways to invite, host particular companies that may not know about our institution, and somewhat lay out who the student profile and the students that are graduating from our campus have to offer back to their particular strategic recruitment initiatives. That also lends the opportunity to mimic certain opportunities that really good companies have in regards to their internship programs, and utilize that to incorporate in the smaller, what we will identify mom and pop, local, regional businesses and companies. So we then also offer a platform to provide a service. It's a satellite service to where myself and a team from the Career Center goes to the particular office or business and help them design and develop a particular internship program and outline from onboarding to the exit and evaluations and all this. So what we found, at least what it's pretty common in El Paso, what we found out is there's a great interest, they just don't know the how. And so that's where we're trying to bridge the gap, is to helping them establish and fill that how void by providing them resources. So not only do we just go there and provide, I hate to use the word consultant, but once we get them set up, then we generate the pipeline of potential students that may serve in these roles that they're recruiting and they're looking for. So it's a very mutual and reciprocal relationship. We tend to expand and extend that to every business partner or community-based organization that wants to get a good start in bringing in interns. But I believe the conversation that was shared yesterday and what will continue on today is that there's phenomenal ideas in regards to, and I'm looking now at Carlos that just walked in, on how to pay these interns. And so I'm taking that information back to my campus and say, okay, there's ways, there's possibilities. So I think that's the beauty of a room of experts like you all here, right? Is that we get to build on ideas. So, I encourage that you all continue to sharing those, because those will be now critical for me as the campus connector to take it back to my campus and then collect and gather people that we need to engage with to continue to expand the work of experiential learning. So, yeah.
Great, thank you all. And if you haven't noticed, one of the intentions behind this panel was to talk about the administrative and managerial side of creating and sustaining partnerships to do internship work. And we talked yesterday about some research topics for graduate students. This may not appear to be a ripe, rich research topic, but studying cross-organizational or inter-organizational partnerships, it's a big topic in business and management. And it's particularly challenging with internships because we're talking about multiple parties. In some cases, the campus is interacting with hundreds of employers. And so that adds another level of complexity. And as you can see, each of our panelists is an expert in their own respective way in this topic, and they each reflect a different model. And so my next question is, what are some recommendations you have for a college or a company hoping to start new internship programs, especially with respect to creating and sustaining collaborative work?
I guess I'll address that in both terms of an employer and in terms of the colleges. And again, we're kind of unique in our part of the state of Wisconsin, where we've got 3 UW system schools. They've really proven to be a perfect example of parties that are willing to collaborate. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I think has been the reason for the successful programs we've been able to launch. All 3 of the schools have limitations. Our organization, as an economic development organization, has limitations. But collectively, the colleges can cover the connections with the students. We can tap into the partnerships and the relationships we have with chambers, with the other regional, state, municipal economic development organizations, our connections with business and industry. So we were almost an extension of the UW system schools in regard to their efforts. We add capacity, we add capital, human capital to their efforts, which I think is fantastic. So from the college perspective, it's that willingness to form partnerships, that willingness to form collaborative efforts. And also what we found out is that you think that the businesses out there understand internships more than they actually do. And one of the programs we launched, the UWIN program, we found out rather quickly that the folks that need the internships the most, the folks that would benefit from the internships the most, are the ones that really are delving into this unknown. They don't know a lot about these programs. Some of them don't even know the first step in regard to, who do I contact? How do I put an internship program together? So the schools have found out and willingly that they are going to be going the extra mile to work with these folks. It's not a question of the businesses outlining the criteria for an internship program. It's just basically, who are you? We'll reach out to you, we'll sit down with you, and we will walk through the process and identify whether or not an internship would be beneficial to your organization, appropriate for your organization. So I guess those 2 things from the college perspective. As far as from the business's perspective, you have to put a lot of thought into making sure that it's a valuable program. You've got to put together a solid orientation program, get them involved in the training programs within the organization that the rest of the employees go through. Get them involved in presentations, get them involved in the community, make sure that there's evaluations, things like that. Don't look at it as free work, free labor, and don't look at it as this is a way for me to fill a tough-to-fill position. Ultimately, we're hoping that a successful internship turns into a permanent employee of that organization so we can tap into the talent that's being produced by the schools. But the bottom line is it shouldn't be, all right, here's a way for me to fill this position I've had a tough time filling for the last year and a half.
So I'm just going to share an example that kind of came to mind as you were talking. And so University of Baltimore, like I said, we're housed in the city of Baltimore. So about a year and a half ago, the city of Baltimore reached out to my office and said, we think we have some internship openings. Can we chat? And so orchestrated a meeting with my team and 2 HR representatives. And after that meeting, it came about that there were a lot of opportunities for internships, but also research opportunities and potential capstone opportunities for partnerships within the classroom. So from there, I'm not a faculty member, so I asked the HR department and the city liaisons to put together like potential projects or what they called problem statements. So what are different areas that the city wants to address that maybe needs the University of Baltimore students to help with tackling these problem statements? And they generated a list of like 14 overarching problem statements, which, they took a look at our majors or different programs and then connected them to what they thought they were looking for within those majors. So we had the city come to campus for an entire day, and the colleges that our department serves is College of Public Affairs, College of Arts and Sciences, which is kind of liberal arts-ish, and some game design and whatnot, and then our Merrick School of Business. So blocked off time, invited faculty from each of those colleges to come and just talk to the city about the different problem statements. And it was such a good conversation. More problem statements came about. So I know the city learned that we have an industrial organizational psychology program, which they hadn't even thought about, right? So really good conversation, solidified some capstone integration, classroom presentations, and then internships as well. So then from there, we realized that some of the city supervisors, right? They're well versed in these problems and can talk about these problems, but maybe they've never had an intern before. So what does that mean? It's not, like you said, free labor, but it actually takes on a lot more work taking on an intern, right? Supervising someone. So my team developed a training program where we went out on site and sat down with the site supervisors and trained them on how to be a good site supervisor, talked about the feedback process, the reflection process, and so on and so forth. So it's been like a phenomenal, it's like I said, it's taken about a year and a half, but it's been great. The other nice thing about that too is that the city's been on campus a lot in different capacities. So our students are starting to recognize them. And for a commuter campus, students are coming to class, maybe staying for a quick bite to eat in between their classes and then going home. So the more visibility an employer has on campus, not just through tabling, but in classroom integration, and then obviously through word of mouth, a friend's like, oh yeah, so I'm working on this awesome capstone project and there's an internship opening, you should apply to this. So it's been a really great partnership and a really good model. And so as more larger departments and programs reach out to us, we've actually created marketing of that particular partnership and relationship because it's been such a successful model that I feel like it could be duplicated.
From the employer side, I think some of the biggest things are, one, are you going to hire these interns? So you have them there over the summer. Are you just doing that just to give the person an educational experience, or are you going to hire them? And we've done a very good job of trying to hire the interns that we have, and that gets back to the university through word of mouth, and so that builds the program. Hey, if you get an internship with American Family, there's a good chance you're going to get a job with American Family. And so exposing them to our culture, they find out, oh, it's not a boring insurance company. This is kind of a cool place. We do a lot of cool things. And so over the summer, they get that experience, and then they want to work there. And so that helps build a reputation. So to have champions within the organization for the internship program, like a CIO that says, hire them all after we do our end of the year presentation or end of the summer presentation, you know, the energy that's generated from the interns within the organization helps kind of just perpetuate the reason why we want to continue to have interns. And so we've been building our internship program over the years. And yeah, we've done a lot of the same things that were mentioned before, having a good orientation program. We have a really good director for our internship program that has put together some really phenomenal programs for the orientation, and we do something called Share Tank, which goes back to our community service thing. It's kind of like a Shark Tank, but they do different things for the community, and the winners get $10,000 for the charity that they worked for. So things like that make it fun and interesting. So it's definitely not all about creating widgets. How many widgets can the interns produce over the summer? That's not one of our goals. Our goal is to give them a good educational experience, to see what they're like. Is this someone that you want on your team? You get a 3-month interview with these students. So to me, that's how you continue to build an internship program, is to hire and to show more and more attention to the interns themselves.
Understanding the stakeholders' need, right? So then it's very likely if you're called upon to help or to foster a relationship or to initiate a partnership, is that you're bringing in a particular set of experiences or capital to the table. But on the flip side, when you're in the meeting with a dean or a faculty member or a business partner, you have to, at least in my position, I have to be more willing to listen and be open to what they are needing in order for me to assess, well, who could be the best person that I could connect you with, or who could be the resources either within the university that could support your agenda. But I think what I will add is, if your campus doesn't have, say, for instance, an individual like myself that focuses on building relationships and connecting resources to people, you yourself should start hopefully identifying who are those gatekeepers, who are those individuals within your universities that have a wealth of capital of knowing, the landscape of your institution, the movers and shakers. And when I first started in this position at UTEP 6 years ago, it was a newly created position. Nobody served in my capacity before I did. So literally my first year was just, I hate to say it, but it was not necessarily cold calling, but it was just introducing who I was, what I was there to do, how could I help. And so I think when you approach it from a helping hand, I think and if you work in higher education, there's very limited resources. So when you extend yourself to say, what can I help you with? What can I get out of your hands? What can I do for you? And so when you offer yourself as an extension to their organization, their department, obviously there's some trust and some rapport that needs to be built in within. But I think those are then the opportunities, and you start with those that are your, kind of your neighboring friends. And like I said, I started with the departments that report in our division. But then from there, word gets around and it's like, hey, you might want to contact so-and-so. But I think one thing I've learned is, aside from the rapport and the trust, you have to have accountability. You have to have the follow through and making sure that you're just not shaking a hand saying, yes, I'll get back to you without the actual, intent of getting back to them. We at the institution, at UTEP, if in this case, we don't have that luxury. So we treat every relationship, every partnership, and we white glove it, as we say, because we don't know what the next opportunity may come about. And so I think that's the beauty of relationships. That's the beauty of building partnerships. That's why I enjoy my job so much. I wouldn't be here if, you know, if the steps that I believe in regards to relationships, would not, you know, presented the opportunity to be here in front of you guys.
We found in our recent field work at Christian's campus that some of the people developing partnerships are eating lunch out 5 days a week with community partners, with employers, just, you know, really building those relationships. And so I'll ask one more question and then we could open it up to the floor. One of the primary topics of this symposium is how internships and other forms of out-of-classroom learning can help cultivate competencies or skills like communication, problem solving, and teamwork. How, if at all, does your organization work with partners to determine the best tasks for students in general and how to develop specific skills like communication and critical thinking and teamwork in particular?
So at the University of Baltimore, no one really owns internships. It's pretty much like faculty driven. So some departments have one set of criteria and other departments, it's a completely different set, which is awesome. But our office does address internships. So we do, about a year ago, I hired an internship and recruitment coordinator who reports to the employer relations team. And he meets with a number of students. So what we found in the last year or so that he's been here is, you know, before we would do internship coaching, but it wasn't called that. It was more like, I'm coming in for a resume review, or I'm interested in maybe an internship. Can you look at my application material? But he is very, very busy now. That word has come out that there's an internship coordinator on campus. So he really works with students to have that conversation, not just internship search strategy with like a pipeline and all of that, but with the soft skills. And his other role is, I don't know how familiar everyone is with like work study, but he's the job location and development coordinator. So students who qualify for federal work study, which is about 90% of our students, are able to utilize their federal work study dollars off campus at a local nonprofit. So, which is for our student population really great because they need to work, right? At least part-time or full-time, and they don't have to necessarily come to campus to work. They can go out and build their resume, build experience. So a lot of our students will work at these nonprofits to gain experience, build their skills, but they're able to get paid for it, and they deem it as an internship. So some will double dip and get credit for it. But what Matthew does, who's my internship coordinator, is with each student that he meets with for this particular program, he does workplace excellence training with them. So there's different competencies, communication, reliability, consistency, all of these things that we think we know, but we might not know, professionalism. And so the students go through this training and they're able to rate themselves. And actually at the end of their either work study or their internship, they're able to complete a digital badge, which is through the University System of Maryland. So if they say, a student says, well, I want to do the critical thinking badge and the professionalism badge, then there are steps that they take to complete these badges, and they get a cool certificate and recognized, and then it also can be attached to their LinkedIn profile. So that lets employers know that they have great communication skills or professionalism skills and whatnot. So that's, again, it's new, but it's been pretty well received, and we're collecting data on it. So that's kind of like the first step of what we're doing to build in these skills for students.
Well, in our internship program, I think a lot of the soft skills come from actually working with the teams. So they get to do the jobs, they're working with the teams, they're learning from people that do the job. And so I think that rubs off a lot on the students that are able to pick up things. But in addition to that, I personally work with each of the IT interns, which last year we had 34, last summer we had 34, on the end of the summer presentation. So we do 5 rehearsals at least, and we work on their presentation. A lot of the IT students are very introverted, and so the idea of doing a speech is frightening to them. And so to get them over that and to understand that they need to sell themselves for those 3 minutes on stage, and that's going to help them, well, in a lot of different ways, but to prepare for the work and to maybe show what they've done all over the summer. And so one of the people in the audience, if it wasn't the manager that they're working for, will hire them. And so we start that from the very beginning. But in addition to that, our intern program coordinator has lunch and learns for all types of different topics. So all through the summer, there's probably only about 30% that they're actually working on the job of doing the job that they were hired to be an intern for. The rest of it is opportunities to interact with other interns or to learn different skills to get educated in the different areas that they're interested in, or to learn about American Family Insurance. So it's all about them, and they kind of get that the focus is on them, and that really helps them develop over the summer.
As far as the soft skills, I think they're the fundamentals to a successful internship. And I know that the 3 UW system schools in our region, when they're working with, and I'm speaking on your behalf, Melissa and Stacy, so if I'm wrong, throw something at me, but they do a great job of making sure that when they're working with a business or an industry, that a quality program is in place that gets the student immersed in that organization, whether it be the orientation, the training, involvement with off-site activities that organization has, just getting them involved in internal meetings, as involved in the structure of the organization as possible, presentations, evaluations, et cetera. I think that's one of the fundamentals with the programs that are in place in our part of the state. And to me, it also goes beyond the college internship programs. I mentioned earlier that we've got a program where we connect high school students and middle school students with business and industry in the region. That's kind of a starting point for these students to start to connect outside of school with these organizations that'll lead into hopefully potential internships when they enroll in a higher education institution. So it can never start too early.
And what I'll add is, you can never discredit the power of education, right? And educating the people that you're engaging with. So in particular, in the case with employers, as I mentioned earlier, as we have this satellite service, right, where we go and connect with, business leaders and community leaders in, trying to spruce and tell them to, bring in more students into their organizations. The willingness is there. Sometimes is their lack. I don't want to say their lack of knowledge. It's just they're busy themselves. So they, and as someone mentioned in this panel earlier, right? It takes sometimes a lot more work, to establish a sound and good internship program. But I will say that most, if not all, employers and organizations that we've worked with at the University of Texas at El Paso will be open for you to guide and orient them as well. So just as our students that are going into these spaces are gonna learn skills, it's also important for the employer to know what type of skills, we would like for the internship program that they're hosting our students, succeed at the end. And sometimes it starts with a conversation, but then there might be some particular initiatives, and I'll come up with an idea, or not an idea, but an actual example that happened when we were courting a company to come and recruit our students, and the people there, as they're meeting with the deans and faculty, they're like, well, you all are not teaching, like it's not in your curriculum, and you all are not teaching A, B, and C. So sometimes also hearing from the employer of the skills that should be incorporated or in the classroom it has to be open to dialogue to hopefully incorporate as well. So again, as I mentioned, mutual and reciprocal. We've made the mistakes at times in the institutions that I've worked at is we're always asking, right? But again, the employer has particular expectations and needs as well. So we have to come and understanding what are those needs, and we're going to have to hopefully match those. And so as I heard yesterday, those internship prep kind of courses or programs leading internship, those are critical. Because especially if you have a strong partnership with a particular employer, you know what they're seeking, you know what they're looking for. So it's an opportunity to prep your students for those particular expectations. And it could be an array of different skills or just particulars, but I think it's important to bring it in front of them so you can set them up for success when they enter into these programs.
I am new in my role developing internships and employer relations. Specifically, I'm working strongly with the manufacturing sector, which are small or medium-sized businesses. What strategies have you found to be the most effective in building and facilitating and sustaining partnerships with businesses that have limited or no HR departments, or have never hosted an intern, or have a very nebulous idea of what an internship program looks like, so I can try and build a little more sustainable or more effective partnerships with them going forward?
With the UN program, we found out that set of businesses, that set of manufacturers, let's say the 50 employer or less buildings that you drive by in a rural road that have a dozen cars parked outside, something's going on in there. Those are the folks that need the interns the most. Those are the folks that, like you said, may not have HR departments. Those are the folks that are flying under the radar. A lot of them only exist in the county's tax records. You don't know who they are. A lot of people don't know what they do. So there's and they're also the ones that probably don't have the slightest idea about where to start. So I would think that, and we just rolled out our UN program about a year ago, and that's the first hurdle that we ran into, is identifying those businesses and actually reaching those businesses. So it sounds like you've got that first step done. You've gotten through the door and you're starting to work with those folks. But to me, the key to success with them is to put a lot of the burden on your shoulders in regard to helping them, because I think if you don't walk them through the process, if you don't go that extra mile, it may not be a sustaining program. It might be a one-off, and they won't have the desire or the ability to keep it going. So it really is just lending them a hand and doing as much as you possibly can for them. And I guess my take would be, limit it to a certain number of organizations first to get the ball rolling, make them case studies, learn from the experience you have with those organizations before you bite off too much, and quality versus quantity, I guess. But best of luck, because that's a challenge we're kind of looking at right now too.
I would also add that really getting to know each organization, but getting to know your students too. So matching is a really, and I hate to use matching or placement because depending on your institution, you may not be placing students, but I know that, I meet with students and I meet with employers, and really knowing the student's capacity and if they're able to still, have a great experience at that particular organization with a little bit less hand-holding or supervision. So some students are cut out for that. They can see something once and then run with it. They may take initiative. They may thrive in that environment, whereas other students won't thrive in that environment. So I think it's not necessarily just saying, oh, well, we can't work with them because they don't have an HR department, but really just kind of navigating and setting your own rules for that particular organization and vetting students thoroughly to see if they are able to intern there.
I think I'd go back to the way we started, is that you have to find a champion. You have to find somebody in that organization that's going to be the standard bearer for that organization, that's going to make the business case to the other people in the organization that says, this is really a good idea for our company to bring in a new pipeline, to bring in entry-level people. And some of that is just simply how to break down jobs into entry level. So a lot of times people have a hard time with, and this was the case at American Family Insurance, is that they could hire whoever they wanted. So they would hire senior level developers instead of entry level developers, because the market was such that they could do that. And so to me is to make the case for why it's better to hire entry level, what you can get out of them. And there's so many things that are working in that favor, is that now the time for somebody that's at the entry level to become valuable to the organization. I think in my career, it's gone from maybe a year to about 3 months to where they can start adding value to the organization. And so if you've got people that can champion that and see and show the benefits of what it is to bring entry-level people into the organization, then they're going to be open to an internship program that is a 3-month interview for entry-level positions.
In our research, we found it's really important if we're talking about firms or nonprofits with no HR departments. It's an additional burden on educators to make sure that the student knows what to do in case they encounter some form of harassment or discrimination at the job site, and also to screen those small companies, because I've heard some horror stories about students going off to like a startup in somebody's garage, and I think ideally would like to avoid that situation.
So I want to give a quick scenario, then the question. We had an intern recently reach out that they were offered an internship with a congressional office, but the office said, you can either get paid or you do college credit. And they were kind of very much torn because they needed to get paid because they were working class, but they also had to do college credit for their for their degree requirement. So we reached out to the office, and they said, oh, actually, that's a policy from their university. So we went back to their university, and it was actually like it was some old regulation that didn't make sense. And then they ended up doing the internship, and their intercoordinator was like 1 year older than them. So the reason why I say that scenario is I think there's two parts here. One is universities, like sometimes you have these old antiquated rules, or different departments, like you said, there's a million rules for interns. How do you change that? Because I feel like it really is impacting the entire ecosystem, especially like obviously everyone here is a champion for what we do, but you don't always get the same buy-in from the dean, the provost, so on and so forth. And then from employers of like the know-how, like you mentioned, Steve, like it's not sometimes that the programs are horrible intentionally, they just don't know any better. Is that always the job of the institution, especially if you're a career center of 1 or 2 for like 15,000 students? So I know it kind of sounds like doom and gloom, but just I wanted to throw that out because I think it's like two parts here.
My viewpoint, I'm housed in the career services office, and I go in, and although I am employer facing in my role now, I'm still always student focused first, no matter what. So the students pay my salary, right? So I think that serving as I view it as like a gatekeeper. So I get really frustrated because we have a number of congressional offices or just different companies that will reach out and say, oh, well, we're paying them via credit. And I'm like, well, you're not a faculty. You don't deem what's creditworthy and not. That's ludicrous. So I get frustrated with that in that sense. And so I think educating is the number one piece. So educating the employer, reaching out, offering that payment. I know for my students, I really advocate for some sort of payment, and based off of Department of Labor standards, no matter what, students are able to get paid for internship even if they are receiving credit. So, I send out the, 7-prong test from the Department of Labor to employers of what's an intern. It's not saying that they have to pay them, but if they want a quality candidate, they probably should pay them, right? So I think that just educating is like the number one say. I know for our system, if employers are posting to our electronic job board, I'm going through and vetting, and if it seems a little murky or unclear, I will go out to do a site visit. I bring them to my office to have that conversation, and I'm honest and upfront and transparent with them. If they're wanting a student for 25 hours a week and it seems like more of a part-time position and they're giving college credit, I'm going to let them know they're probably not going to have applicants. Like, that's not a reality. Very few times do I get pushback, but if I do, then I bring in the faculty member. So I had recently an accounting firm that reached out. They wanted a student for 8 hours a week, college credit. Well, in the Baltimore region, our accounting interns make about $30 to $35 an hour, okay? Minimum 25 hours a week. Springtime tax season, it's a full-time position. So, she was very adamant, why am I not getting interns? And, emailed my supervisor, brought her in, and I brought her in with the head of accounting faculty and said, look, this is what's the reality. These are the opportunities that students are going for. Your program that you have right now it does not fit with what our students are looking for or even the market. So sometimes employers, especially starting out, they may not know what the market is. So it's not necessarily that they're trying to pull wool over your eyes, but they may need to be educated.
What we hear is from interns and employers telling us that it's the institution being the one telling, hey, they can either get paid or do credit, and that's it. So how do you, I guess change that across, because, you guys are doing a fantastic job, but what about the other institutions that are not? And I guess that's kind of my question.
I know an institution that I worked for formerly, they had a nursing program. And so with the nursing program, students had to do a number of hours and everything. They were not able to get paid for that. So depending on a program, if a student is not able for like a practicum purpose, which I guess would be deemed an internship, if they're not able to get paid in that sense per the program, our hands are kind of tied with that. But in other programs where there isn't explicitly written, I guess I would send the student to that particular advisor, look at the program, outline, and if there's nothing written about not being paid, then they can certainly get paid. So I think it's just getting everyone in the room together and it's hard because students are sent, they go here and then they come see you and then the employer is saying this and they feel really lost. So I think just everyone needs to do a better job in general. So that's the $1 million question, right?
We have to pay our interns, and we pay them pretty well. We're in a competitive arena, so we pay them.
Hearing you speak yesterday in regards to your organization is, at times it seems that you're doing a lot of the investigating and the work of what institutions supposed to be doing. If the mindset is putting students first and their interests and their safety and et cetera, I don't know if this is a particular solution or answer, but there's got to hopefully be some policies and guidelines, right, within either the undergraduate or graduate catalog that has a descriptor of what the internship course is and what does it entail, requirements. So I think the challenge would be institutionalizing those particular guidelines, right, or those policies, because I'll speak on behalf of my university. The internship landscape for credit differs within colleges, right? It's not unified, so to speak. And then you also have the internships that are managed through our centralized career center that are through, partnerships and engagements. So, and they have their own guidelines and criteria. So I think ideally, and sadly, it has to come, working in a bureaucratic system from the top down. And so it has to be an initiative organized by a chief student affairs administrator or a provost that says, okay, in our campus, and like I said, just recently, we started to launch this initiative called College to Career, right? Internships are a really big component of it, but we found out that we have a vague idea of internships and obviously the power of internships. But here's the thing that always strikes me, right? Amongst a room of experts in this one, it's common sense to us, like, of course, duh, why, but when you take it to a room of other people and into your comment of like archaic mindset, they're bringing in their past experiences. Well, when I did an internship, blah, 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 it was like this, or right. And so it's, I think the challenge is how do we bring these elaborate amount of stakeholders that either are responsible in overseeing an internship program, that have connections with employers, that are establishing new internship opportunities, because ultimately, I think the best solution hopefully will be to institutionalize and say, look, our students need to be a part of these type of experiential learning opportunities, and in order for it to work, there's got to be this understanding between organization, institution, and organization. I mean, but if you worked in higher ed, that's a toughie.
So from like a regional development perspective, including more small and medium-sized businesses seems like a great thing. But it also sounds like it's a lot of work to cultivate those relationships, and certainly places more burden on the school to do that. So in terms of just fraction of placements, where are your institutions at in terms of, placing students into small and medium-sized businesses kind of regionally versus just larger companies, whether local or kind of international, national, that can handle lots of internships?
If you look at the three UW system schools in our region, UW Stout requires an internship prior to graduation, and the other two schools are virtually at that point right now as well. Historically, the internships have been spread out. A lot of them have been at larger business and industry, 3M, Phillips, Metasize, some of the key manufacturers in our part of the state of Wisconsin, as well as throughout the state and throughout the Midwest. We've had internships through UW Stout, I believe, that have been at the Under Armour corporate offices in Baltimore, I believe. So right now we're kind of at the beginning stages of trying to plant more of these students in these smaller and medium-sized manufacturers and businesses. And we've got the luxury of time because the students are finding internships, but also there are a lot of students that would like internships within our region that can't find those internships. That's kind of the inception of the UWIN program. That's how it started, was a student that was unable to find a local internship, and the conversation rolled from that to, over a cup of coffee to this larger scale regional effort. But our goal is pretty reasonable. We hope that in a couple of years, maybe we've got an additional 100, 150 internships at businesses through that 10-county region. And as far as the investment that the higher education institutions are putting into this, it's turned out to be a fairly balanced effort across the board between Momentum West and between the universities. A couple of examples, the career placement offices from the schools, some of the county EDOs in Momentum West got together to get this program going. UW Eau Claire did the design work on the initial brochure, which you'll find these out on the table out in the hallway. UW Stout was responsible for allowing us to tap into their database to put together a mailer to these businesses. I mentioned earlier they're under the radar. A lot of them you don't even know are out there who they are, but they've got information that software that their students had leveraged for other purposes that we were able to or are able to leverage to get a mailer out. So it's kind of a little bit at a time. But it's been a collaborative effort. It's been balanced in terms of the capital, both dollars and time that we put into it. And I don't know, Stacy and Melissa, do you feel that there's been an exorbitant amount of time? I know I'm not setting up for this because I know it's been very manageable just to get this thing rolling.
For us, local and regional is who we target. We target it within our recruitment from incoming students, and we target businesses because, as now I'll tie in yesterday's conversation to this, what we're finding out about our students, they're very tied to their roots in their particular community, right? First generation college students, Hispanic Latinos, so family is priority to them. And so when they are assessing opportunities to go, say, to Dallas or find something comparable or similar in the skill sets that they'll be learning that they could potentially find in El Paso, they'll stay in El Paso, regardless of the brand, regardless of the company name. And that's unique because most students would think, well, of course you want to go work for, the top tech firm in, Silicon Valley. But this is good information for us to know. And again, this is information that as students share and report out, that then challenges an institution like ourselves to continue to cultivate the opportunities locally, right? And so that then also extends to working with the employers, as I mentioned earlier, but also leveraging the alumni, right, that are working in these businesses that at one point they were these students seeking opportunity. So you have to kind of look at these windows of opportunity. So what the Career Center has done really good is they've provided a list, right, of companies in El Paso and provided descriptors of, okay, this are the not only the majors, but this is what the company does, this is what the student will learn, develop, et cetera. And so I think offering that to students, online or in a brochure gives them the, you're trying to add also value to their degree, right? If they decided to stay home, what can they do? How can they kind of work in the community that they so much love? Because the reality is distance and money is very hard for them, right? I mean, you're talking about San Antonio is 600 miles away from El Paso. I was sharing with a colleague, it's closer to drive to LA than it is to Houston. So when you look at El Paso, and so the geographic component of the city, though maybe we'll see it as a disadvantage of like, oh my God, you're so far away and remotely removed from everything. Again, you have to kind of flip the mindset and think of the positives. Okay, what are the type of opportunities that these students are seeking, right? What do they want to learn outside the classroom? And can we recreate that within the businesses within our local community? But again, at times that tends a little bit more work, a little bit more effort in collaborating and connecting with those within the city.
There are students out there that want to work for the largest companies on the planet, the most prestigious. They're real go-getters. This is, they're top dogs, but they're also students that don't want that. And if you look at the UW system schools across the state of Wisconsin, a lot of those schools, high percentage of their enrollment is from, say, a 30, 45-mile radius. Those students chose that school because it was convenient, it's close to home, and they really don't want to go far away. Likewise, with an internship program, they don't want to go to Baltimore, they don't want to go to California. They want an internship that is in close proximity to where they grew up, to where they're going to school, and that's where these small businesses come into play. They present that convenient option that's just as appropriate for the student in terms of an internship that's right down their alley.
What I've seen effective, and I'm not a part of an educational institution, but schools inviting small businesses to become part of their curriculum boards or some other part of the university. And so once that partnership gets built, it's like, hey, maybe we should have some interns as well. So I think building some kind of a partnership, whether it's on a curriculum board or some other way, maybe just invite them to, hey, can you help us on a panel, or just developing some kind of relationship in a particular area is a way in, I think.
UB is similar to El Paso in the sense of most of our students, although Baltimore has a lot of big name, Under Armour, Morgan Stanley, what have you, in the city. Most of our students live within an 8-mile radius of campus, but I will say that most of our students are first generation college students, Pell Grant recipients. And so I was sharing with a colleague yesterday that Morgan Stanley has this aggressive outreach to come to campus and recruit. And although, that's a household name for a lot of people, for my students, that's not a household name, right? So many of our students actually prefer the smaller firms, mid-size level organizations versus larger firms. And I think a lot of it has to do, we talked about this yesterday, but imposter syndrome, right? So being able to see themselves working in that particular organization. I know Under Armour actually does a really good job. We took students there on a site visit, and they got to meet with VP of HR and tour the different facilities. Their workout facility is phenomenal. But they do a January co-op program for students in the Maryland region specifically to apply. And it's like I want to say it's a 2-week program where students come in and they learn the ins and outs, and it kind of gives them a leg up for their robust summer internship program. Under Armour's in the community. They built this awesome facility for one of the elementary schools, right down the street. So our students see that and they recognize Under Armour as being for their community. So I think just being able to show students that they are able to work there, they are capable of working there, and that organization cares about their community is huge.
So for those of us keeping track of research or dissertation topics, thank you for number 39. The spatial dimensions and the geographic dimensions of internship access is definitely something that needs to be explored in the future.